Because I ran a poll in my Facebook group the other day and I asked everyone, what was it that threw you off track or kind of made you feel like you failed the last time you did a diet? And put up a few different options like the cravings were too intense, or I didn't have enough energy, or life was too busy. Can't remember what the other ones were. But the one that was most popular, or the one that unfortunately most people have experienced, is that they did everything right and they didn't see results, or they just didn't lose any weight. So that's why I wanted to talk about this today, because it's a really common problem. And I wasn't surprised to see that as the answer to the poll, because this is the thing that so many women get in touch with me about, because they are, whatever the diet is, be it Weight Watchers, Slimming World, keto, low carb, paleo, whatever. Many of the women that I speak to have tried all of these things and more, and despite being super disciplined, combining it with exercise, being careful about how much they eat, they just do not lose weight. And it is so frustrating, and it makes you really feel like you don't have control of the situation, because it's like there's no more that you can do, there's no more effort that you can put in, you can't eat any less, and you're still not seeing the results. So it's super frustrating for everyone. And so I wanted to talk to you about why this happens. And women who are kind of late 30s and older are much more likely to experience this, in my experience. And so one of the factors is age. Now, don't switch off at this point. It doesn't mean that you can't do something. Age is not doesn't make you a lost cause or anything like that. But there are some things that happen as we age that make us more prone to holding on to weight. And one of the biggest factors is our metabolism decreases. So probably most people are aware that as time goes on, the metabolism decreases and they burn fewer calories, which means you need to eat less as you get older. Part of the reason why your metabolism reduces as you get older is because we start losing muscle if we're not taking significant steps to maintain our muscle mass. And if we don't use it, then we lose it. And so really from about the age of 35, we can be very prone to losing muscle. And as we lose muscle, we burn fewer calories. And as we burn fewer calories, we are holding on to fats. And often, despite the loss of tissue from muscle, we're getting bigger. And that's because our muscle is often being replaced by fat, which is not what we want. Doesn't make us feel good about our bodies, means that we lose the tone, and also isn't good for our health either. So that loss of muscle is one of the factors. And then another factor that really happens at the same time is our hormones start to change. And really from about mid-30s for women, there is a very, very gradual change in hormones, where your levels of your hormones overall are starting to drop. And that happens over the course of 10 to 15 years as you approach menopause. And that decline in those sex hormones does predispose you to holding on to a little bit more weight, partly because your fat cells actually produce a little bit of estrogen. And so having a bit more fat is a little bit helpful when we start to naturally produce less estrogen from the ovaries, because the fat cells make up that shortfall in the estrogen. So it is normal to gain a little bit of weight as we get older, but this is quite a small amount of weight that I'm talking about. So the hormones changing and getting older is one thing that impacts your metabolism. And then the other thing is a general reduction in metabolic health. So what I mean by this is as we get older, we become less sensitive to the effects of our hormone insulin. And insulin is our fat storage hormone, and so it helps us to move sugar from our blood to our cells so that we can make energy. But as time goes on, we become less sensitive to the effects of insulin, and we can end up with higher blood sugars. And when we have higher blood sugars, it's very difficult for us to get into fat burning mode because insulin doesn't come down enough to allow that to happen. So that's something that happens over time, and that is something that can be contributed to by the imbalances in your sex hormones and the reduction of muscle mass. And also yo-yo dieting. Many women that we work with have spent their entire adult lives on a diet, or rather on a diet and then very much off a diet and then very much on a diet. And what we know is that when we yo-yo, most people will lose weight, but they will regain weight and more. And part of the reason for that is because these diets where you lose weight quite quickly are very bad for your metabolism, partly because you're not just losing fat when you do these diets, you're losing muscle as well. So you speed up that reduction of metabolism when you do these diets where the weight is coming off quickly, or where basically you're just restricting your food and exercising more. They're not long-term solutions for weight gain, and so they reduce your metabolism and make you more prone to weight gain and holding on to fats after doing the diet. So people that have spent their whole lives on diets tend to gain weight each time, or end up heavier each time they do a diet and fail. So that's part of it. And then alongside that, years of following a lower fat diet or a low nutrient diet is potentially part of the issue. We need fat, we need a lot of nutrients, and because so many diets really focus on reducing the calories, that means that the focus is on reducing the fat, because fats are higher in calories than proteins and carbohydrates. So you end up eating a lower fat diet, which is not good for our metabolic health. We end up eating a low nutrient diet because there are certain nutrients in fat that we really can't get unless we have got fat in the diet. So we end up nutrient depleted, and that is bad for our metabolism as well. And then add to all of this that when you are kind of late 30s, 40s, 50s, there's a very good chance that you're in a situation where you might have young children, possibly elderly parents who need support from you, quite possibly a full-time job or any sort of job, and often financial pressures as well. So there can be a hell of a lot going on at this time of life, and that can often mean that stress is high, sleep is poor, and both of those things are very negative. They're not good for your, again, muscle mass and metabolism, and they are very inflammatory, which doesn't help with the hormone balance. So basically it's just a recipe for disaster. The kind of build up to this time in your life, what naturally happens at this time in your life, and the standard solutions that are out there for you, the typical diets that are asking you to reduce calories or cut out food groups or do lots of exercise, they are not actually looking at what your body is lacking, what it needs to find optimal balance. And our methodology, or our kind of philosophy, is all around making sure that we build up your metabolism and get your body working like a well-oiled machine so that it can actually access your fat stores and burn them and make energy, so that you can see progress and feel really good whilst losing weight, without having to give up all of your favourite foods or feel like you're being deprived, having to resist the cravings constantly. There's lots of things that can make it difficult to stick to a diet, like cravings and hunger and tiredness and being busy all the time. But equally, if you're not seeing any results when you do put the effort in, then that makes it impossible. So that means that we need really two main things. One is that we need to make changes that are going to be practical and sustainable and fit in with your family and enjoyable. And the other side of things is that we need to make changes that are actually going to be working with your body rather than working against it. So a couple of things that we want to factor in is, firstly, we don't want to be focusing on the restriction side of things. We don't want to be just looking at cutting out calories, cutting out carbs, cutting out food groups, and upping the exercise, because the problem isn't the calories, the problem isn't the calorie deficit, the problem is the hormones, the inflammation. It's to do with your muscle mass and your detoxification and nutrient status, all that sort of thing. These are the things that go on to impact your metabolism. So we want to make sure that we're rebuilding your metabolism by working on putting in quality fuel, putting in food that is good quality, nutrient rich food. And we also want to make sure that we're eating foods that are anti-inflammatory or not triggering inflammation. That means being mindful of what food sensitivities there might be. It means not putting in foods that can be very highly processed or very nutrient poor, that might actually deplete your nutrient levels. And we also want to balance your hormones. So that means that we want to, again, be providing your body with the nutrients that we need to actually make hormones in a balanced way. And we want to be providing your body with the nutrients and fuel it needs to be able to detox your hormones in a balanced way. And we need to make sure that your gut's working properly so that you're eliminating those hormones properly. And we want to make sure that, whilst you are, exercise is important, we want to make sure that you are doing exercise that is going to be restorative and not causing more problems than it's solving. And for a lot of women that we work with, the exercise is something that is often off. Sometimes they're doing too much, and that's causing a reduction in muscle mass because they're not repairing the muscle that they're damaging during exercise. For some people, they are doing exercise that is raising their stress levels, which is not helpful, or rather raising their cortisol levels, which is not helpful. So we often want to scale that back and do more gentle exercise. So these are the types of things that you want to be factoring in and thinking about. So I hope that helps you to understand why you might not be seeing results when you're being really disciplined and eating less and exercising more and counting your carbs or counting your calories or whatever it is. If you're not seeing results with that, then it means that you're you're not addressing the real deeper issue. So I hope that helps, and I hope you've got some insight there as to the type of areas that you might need to focus on. If you've liked this video, please make sure that you give us a like and let me know in the comments, has this resonated with you? Are you experiencing this where you're not seeing results despite feeling like you're doing everything right? I want to hear from you, so let me know in the comments, and I'll see you soon.